Good evening, sir. Am I audible and visible to you? Vuthu, sir?
Just kindly give him a minute. He's just joining.
Sure, sure. No issue.
Hello, Sumit.
Hi, Shilpi. Am I audible and visible to you?
Yes, yeah.
Great, great. Vinod, am I audible and visible to you as well? Yeah.
Yes, buddy, yes. I think I can see you. Uh, Hopefully. Yes, you and me over there.
So we are waiting for Anupam and Mr. Prasad to join, and then we'll start in 3 minutes.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Take your time.
Hi, Anupam. Is my voice? Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are. Hi.
Great. So we are just waiting for Mr. Prasad to join. Then we can begin. Am I audible and visible?
Yeah, very much. Am I audible also?
Yeah, yeah. So you're audible.
I'm visible also.
Sir, not yet visible.
I'll just.
So now you're visible.
Okay.
So, sir, I think all the panelists are here. If it so, can we begin?
Yeah, we can begin now. We are in
So,
time.
all
I
right.
hope we are not late.
Yeah.
We were late by two
Uh,
minutes.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to a panel discussion being organized by the Center for Competition Law and Economics on competitiveness of the AI industry in India. The background of the conference is that the center published a concept paper titled, similarly titled, just a brief background of the paper. The advent of Gen AI took most of the world by surprise, though propelled by the advent of Chat GPT. Big tech entities were soon to follow the trend by making strategic investments in the existing AI companies and simultaneously enhancing the expenditure to build the core infrastructural inputs required to be in this market. The market is currently in a nascent phase where there are a lot of uncertainties related to the future. The paper is an attempt to understand AI on its own merits and map the subsequent competition landscape around it. The paper also conducts a literature review of most of the leading competition authorities who have conducted similar studies across the world. Now, I would like to briefly introduce our specialists and panelists for the discussion. We have Mr. Ratneshwar Prasad. Mr. Ratneshwar Prasad is a former member of the Competition Commission of India. He has over 40 years of work experience and has served as chairperson of the Central Board of Direct Taxes. He has a unique distinction of deciding over 10,000 tax appeals. In addition to his expertise in the area of international tax, Mr. Prasad has completed a full-time Masters of Finance from University of Strathclyde, UK. Welcome, Mr. Prasad. Then we have Ms. Anupam Sanghi. Anupam has nearly 2 decades of experience as a commercial and competition lawyer. Her domain expertise lies in telecom, media, and technology. As an advisor to TRI and CCI, she has helped businesses in navigating policy gray areas and anticipating strategic solutions to market entrants. Anupam is also a qualified cost and financial analyst and has been a regular speaker at national and international conferences and seminars. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Ms. Sanghi. Then we have Mr. Vinod Kumar Vuthu. Mr. Vuthu is a president of India SME Forum. He is also the managing partner and country manager India and Middle East at International Sustainable Development Research and Consulting, which is also known as SDRC International. Mr. Kumar is an experienced business strategy consultant and investor offering his expertise in equity investments, finance, and strategic business growth advice. Prior to his role at the SME Forum, Mr. Kumar has served as the MD of Mafatial Consultancy Services Limited. Welcome. I would like to welcome Mr. Vithu to the discussion. Then we have Dr. Shilpi Bhattacharya. Dr. Bhattacharya is a professor of law at Jindal Global Law School. She received her PhD in competition law from the Erasmus University Rotterdam as part of the European Doctorate in Law and Economics. Her thesis was titled Competition Law and the Bounded Rationality of Firms. Shilpi's areas of interest are competition law, contract law, behavioral law and economics, and law and economics. Previously, Shilpi has practiced securities law at Linklaters LLP in Singapore. She received the Olin Fellowship to pursue an LLM at University of Virginia, where her coursework orientation was on law and economics. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Bhattacharya as well. So I would like to inform the panelists that some of the participants have joined on the Zoom. However, this discussion is also being live streamed on YouTube. So there might be some questions which we would be receiving on email. So I'll be at the end of the panel discussion. I'll be sharing. I'll be directing those questions to the panelists if that is fine. So, all right, so I'll begin. So the way we have to structure this panel discussion is that Mr. Prasad can speak. So I'll be sharing broad areas on which the panelists can share their thoughts. Possibly Mr. Prasad can speak first, followed by Ms. Sanghi, followed by Mr. Vuthu and then followed by Dr. Bhattacharya. If that is fine, with the permission of panelists, may I begin?
Okay. First of all, I must thank you for inviting me to the panel. A fine good evening to all of you. The main subject of discussion is AI, artificial intelligence, which is going to change the world in the coming years. It started in the 19th century, but with the advent of computers later on, internet, and cloud systems, now it is easier to do it. Computing has become cheaper, storage has become easier, and all the data which is available because data is being stored somewhere here or there. So the aim was to have a machine which will work like human being. So the first machine which they built was somebody made a machine which could play checkers. That happened in 1950s. Then a machine was built which defeated Boris Spassky in chess. So that was the starting point. Now with the advent of internet, computerization, the machine learning became important. The machine learning, there are three parts to it. One is the normal learning, where one machine does one function, only particular function is assigned to it. Second is the general learning, and third is the deep learning. The deep learning is something like your human brain is neural, so it will think work like a human being. Then out of that, robotics has also come out of this artificial intelligence. So that is how it has developed, and still developing. We are in the process. It is regarded as the fourth industrial revolution, which is going to happen. Now, what is going to happen? Now you see facial recognition is there. Voice commands, your voice can be copied. Shah Rukh Khan can be made to look younger by artificial intelligence because though he is generally 55, 57, he still comes as 30-year-old in many movies. So this is all the work of artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence, it can be used for many benefits. It will reduce the cost of production. Now it take the automatic cars, driverless cars. That is work only on artificial intelligence. So it will make redundant many of the manufacturers of IC engines. Now these people will become jobless. There's a study which shows that 47% of jobs world over will go away if artificial intelligence comes together. It will help in crime detection, facial recognition, then fingerprinting all over the world. A man can be, it can be used for that. So it is a tool which can be used for the benefit of the people, and is also a tool it can work against the people. So it is how you use the tool, how you program the tool that is going to work. But it is an ongoing process. It has just started. India, the total turnover, I think, is about $0.8 billion US, is likely to increase to about 1.8 in the coming year in 2025. But our investments in AI in India is very low. And we have to invest, otherwise we will be left behind. We are left behind in the first industrial revolution, we are left behind in the fourth industrial revolution. So investment has to come, research has to grow, patents have to be done. Now, India is ranked today 15th in AI. USA is 1, China is 2. China is investing about $20-30 billion. US and private investment is there. And all the technology companies are all US companies, whether you take Google, you take Amazon, you take Alphabet, they're all American companies. And they have the cloud system. They have the technical know-how, so they're going to do well. We will be left far behind unless we invest. Our servers are also not in India. Servers are in US. We have less data. Chinese, luckily, their servers are in China, so they have all the data. So this is going, but investment is required. People have to get used to it that investment in AI is required. AI will create competition concerns, but it will also create competition in certain areas. So it is
It
just a
might be
tool.
broken.
It is just a tool. So this is only a background I just gave. Now we can all discuss how it will affect different parts of the economy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us the opening thoughts. Anupam, I'll come to you. I mean, how do you think that, Mr. Prasad has already given a brief background that, on one hand, there are pro-competitive effects, where this entire AI would sort of usher in competition. But at the same time, there is a sort of skeptical view on it as well. So what are your opening thoughts in terms of how is AI shaping up across the globe? I mean, followed by Mr. Muthu and Dr. Bhattacharya.
Thank you for calling me over for this discussion, Sumit. And it's really nice to hear Mr. Prasad's such futuristic views. And I'm so happy to have co-panelists, which I really admire. So looking forward to this discussion. My opening thoughts are really from the point of view of how I see markets. I think digital markets are of so many types. You can't brand them as just one type like gatekeepers or digital platforms, because there's so many different business models. So the some business models are innovation based, some are transaction based. So you have intermediaries which are like B2B, B2C platforms. Then you have like your Uber, Olas, and who would imagine that taxis and hotels would actually get platformized, and even global companies could enter the local markets and connect the service providers to the users. So this is all part of new business models which are innovative. And then there are other business models which allow other products and service providers to innovate on the same platform. So they will allow value addition to the platform instead of just selling B2B and B2C products and services. So and then you have ecosystems like the Android ecosystem and the iOS ecosystem. So basically we are in an information age where ideas are unlimited, and anybody can come up with an idea that that can be that can be brought to the market in the form of an app, and you can actually get onto an ecosystem which allows you to add value to their platform, which is they've built an ecosystem around it. Okay, so I think the way I look at it is that these markets which are getting platformized now, we are further seeing how AI is helping from a multidisciplinary angle. That it's not just about search engines looking at information or searching for products and services, searching for any content, but it's a multidisciplinary place where you can use a chat GPT, which gives you a search from all kinds of angles, and and you can ask whatever you like, and you can even kind of it's a chat bot, you can take advice. So it will definitely improvise. It may not be great at this point of time, but I think we are seeing a lot of innovation which we had not imagined. And as Alvin Toffler had rightly predicted that that in this day and age it will be like worse than cultural shock. We will be seeing a future shock that people will just not be able to adapt to this kind of change that is happening. So the way I look at it is big shift, big change from just traditional pipeline methods, supply chain, to platformizing and innovative business models. And I think people who are thinking in the traditional way may are already getting phased out. So everybody is forced to get onto digital markets or digital platforms, whatever you may call it. So it's a time to really understand these markets, also with all the great benefits, there could be a lot of harms. So it's a time to understand the markets first, and then also develop a theory of harm relating to data, relating to privacy, relating to biases. But to have blanket rules is not going to help. But like ex ante rules, is not going to help. So it's really a time to understand these markets, which are still very much in the infancy. Like people say that AI is still just a baby, although it has created an impact which is the kind of impact that we saw when electricity came into the market. So well so there's I guess we have hundreds of years to work towards this, and see how this will reshape
Things pan
our
out.
lifestyles.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vinod, sir, please.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Sumit, and it's a pleasure to represent over 12 lakh entrepreneurs in India that are currently seeing the mechanism of how to utilize AI in our own businesses. Well, I'd start by saying that AI has been around, like Prasad sir did talk about, for very long. And some of the very useful mechanisms that we have already been exposed to are, for example, Google Maps, which started way back in the year 2002, 2003. I used to work those days in the same uh, global positioning system and those technologies. And I understand that when they, for example, Google Maps, they do a predictive analysis. If you have to go from Andheri to Fort, they'll tell you exactly how much time it'll take, and most probably the difference will be less than 4 or 5 minutes away. In terms of exactly when you will reach. AI has been part of our lives for very, very long. And without us knowing the fact that it is AI or predictive analysis that has, taken over our lives, but primarily most of it has been extremely constructive. I'm also aware about a business which runs with over 30,000 subscribers in Bombay, and the gentleman running it is able to figure out which month or which day would supplies run out in the consumer's home. And how does he do that? Because they have a track of what he's bought over the last 12 months. Which months has he bought what? Which months does the guy buy additional things? So it is very easy to actually put together a list of things that the customer will need. So what this guy does is the system automatically transgresses the relationship between the seller and the buyer, and instead sends a communication to the consumer saying that you're going to run out of toothpaste hopefully in the next 4 days. So do you have an arrangement, or are you going to come back to us? And if you do, here is the link for you. Please go online and buy, and we get it delivered to you. So um, all of this is shaping the world very, very differently. We are talking about revolutionizing automation across industries. We're talking about enabling tasks which will be performed much more efficiently and accurately. I don't think if you don't normally ask your taxi driver how much time it's going to take to Fort, he could have only guessed, and his guess would never be correct. But the fact that you have a Google Maps which today tells you that you're going to be there in 47 minutes, and hopefully you'll be there either by 45 or 49 or 50. The difference won't be too much. So, similarly, AI is transforming healthcare. We're talking about highly advanced diagnostics, drug discovery, personalized medicine, virtual assistants for patient monitoring. There are lots of countries which do not have access to, I'd say, working age people, nurses, and God knows what all. So, today medicine will get automated more and more, even though there are a lot of Indians and other people that are going out into the world and taking up all these jobs. But the fact remains that you are going to have requirements which necessitate AI. Prasad had talked about self-driving cars. I'm talking about optimized routing, preventive or maintenance of cars, predictive maintenance. The scope is amazing at what can actually happen. At the same time, when you look at, okay, what is India doing? India is doing a pretty big amount of work as far as AI is concerned and using AI is concerned. You have companies like Dunzo, Phonetic.ai, Haptic. You have fractal analysis. You have Glance. You have Unifor, Yellow.ai, Persistences. There's so many companies out there which are working on AI today, and I think more than the government putting in money or anything of that sort, it is industry which is actually understanding the potential, and they are putting in investments where it will work. Of all the things, I have an example of where the government of India, Ministry of Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises, has onboarded the latest AI tools and machine learning in something called the Champions Portal, which is a single window portal which can help micro, small, medium enterprises through its network of 60, I think 70 odd control rooms throughout the country. Now, all of this that is happening uh, is also because we have a huge talent pool of individuals that are working in the AI space. We're talking about anywhere between 500,000 to 800,000 professionals that are currently working on, this entire scope, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's machine learning, whether it's chat GPT and its derivatives and so on. Uh, uh, my understanding is that we are talking about maybe 15 to say $16 trillion added to the global economy by 2030 through AI. And we've also discussed, there have been several reports which have talked about how explosive is the growth going to be in the AI and machine learning industry as far as India is concerned. And you're talking about gross revenues or costs ranging between 17 to $18 billion. Now, while we are discussing the good points of what AI can do and all of that, there's also lots of challenges and limitations that are coming, that are going to be faced by us. One of the most serious limitations is that when we talk about our demographic dividend, which is people, how is AI going to risk uh, job creation? Because the more automated we become, the more lesser people we need to do menial jobs. That there is going to be a certain amount of concern about potential job displacement, especially in industries with repetitive tasks. Where you're doing the same job over and over and again, something that a machine can very, very easily do. Similarly, artificial intelligence system can also inherit biases, from the data that you are actually allowing it to get trained. So there are a lot of times, I've faced this in Google Maps that, it's predicted that Monday you can reach fort by so and so time in from Andheri, but that doesn't happen because that day there's something different that has happened, and so it's unable to calculate that because it inherits a certain amount of bias from the data that is collated and gone through over so many weeks, and that can also lead to potential discrimination or ethical issues at times. Now, addressing all of these biases and ensuring transparency and accountability um, uh, is a big onus that most companies need to take that are working as far as AI is concerned. Similarly, when you are talking about relying on extremely large amounts of data, there are also concerns about infringing on personal privacy, security, and all that. I think Anupam talked about the fact that we already have the digital bill which has come in, the draft bill which has come in, which which talks about companies should not focus on I'd say data and identify who you are so you can be shown a certain type of advertising on Insta or Twitter. But that's ridiculous because if we were to take that out, just imagine a small enterprise, a micro enterprise will not be able to put an ad in a Times of India or a Telegraph or something like that to reach its audience, which where the overflow is going to be like 3,000 times. I need 40 people and I'm going to reach out to 4.5, 5, 6, 5 million people. Crazy. So again, when we talk about the limitations, it's also about what sort of uh, role the government has in um, creating a mechanism where AI should be allowed to flourish. It should not have a situation where we sort of over-regulate it and kill the very idea of using AI. And we're talking about a very extremely evolving competitive landscape, both globally and nationally. You have countries like the US, China, Russia, even Iran, strategically using AI to enhance technological capabilities and influence. Now, a lot of countries, yes, we say are heavily invested in AI research, development, deployment, and so on and so forth. But we are also talking about expenditure in AI. As far as India is concerned, is going to reach around $12 billion by 2027. And like I said earlier, it will add at least $1 trillion in terms of where we are in terms of the economy by 2035. And this is a World Economic Forum report which have talked about this. I mean, I have so many points, but I mean, I'd give the opportunity to more people to speak so that I can also learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Utu. Dr. Bhattacharya, if you might please.
Thank you so much, Sumit. And it's such a honor and a privilege to be part of this conversation and be a co-panelist with such eminent people. And I've really learned so much. So I don't have much to add because the eminent people before me have outlined the overall general landscape so well. So maybe I'll just very briefly give my thoughts on this. So as the eminent panelists before me have said, sort of this is a moment of inflection for us because it is a significant technological shift, unlike something that we've seen in the recent past. So it is, in that sense, a very transformative moment for us. And no one really knows sort of how this is going to evolve, in what way this is going to evolve. Even the people developing this technology don't fully understand how it's going to evolve. So in terms of innovation, it is a very critical time. And as the panelists before me have said, there are sort of a lot of benefits and a lot of risks that arise from the technology that is developing through AI. So I don't want to kind of repeat that because I think that's been covered in a lot of detail. So I think we need to, for one, sort of not repeat the mistakes we've made earlier in terms of sort of just letting things go with the flow and then realizing after markets have tipped that we need to do something to fix it. And essentially, while this is at a nascent stage, sort of I'm coming from a more competition law perspective here because I am sort of, that's my area of interest. So essentially, while this is a nascent market, we do see that market is already kind of forming in certain ways. But of course, it's a very technical area. So when we talk about AI, I think you mentioned this in your paper as well. You have to think through the AI stack, right? At least from a perspective, you need to think through the stack. From the hardware, the computational infrastructure, to the foundation models, to the data, and sort of how AI is training on data, the data processing, and then the deployment of data, and then the applications that get built on these AI models. So essentially, we see that at some levels, the market is really open. There's a lot of innovation happening. But when we look at foundational models, we see that there's already like huge barriers to entry. You know, big tech has the prominent sort of position with respect to AI. So we already see that kind of concentration in certain markets. And I think this is an opportunity which I think regulators worldwide have already recognized. This is an opportunity. The CCI already is doing like a study on this. So we need to start studying this early on to understand sort of what are the implications. Because if it's going to be the same kind of markets that we've seen earlier, that we are now having to kind of think through whether those are the right kind of markets that we want to see. But we're thinking through it too late. So the market is all if you're thinking about it when the market is already closed off, then your what you can do in terms of innovation is more limited, because a lot of the innovation that could have happened, and here I'm talking about digital markets and not AI. So a lot of innovation that could have happened in digital markets may not have happened because of certain strategies taken by the larger players. And then sort of now we're looking back and thinking that, okay, things may have gone in a different way if we had sort of thought about the concentration of power early on. So with AI, we need to keep that in mind, in that there is so much of potential for innovation. But are we really moving in a direction where we're correctly harnessing that potential for innovation? Are we just riding the bandwagon and sort of taking the, we'll see how it goes approach, and then sort of later on we'll see, when the dust settles, we'll see that things are pretty much in a situation where the powerful players have even more power. And the problem with that is that sort of right now there's so much of innovation happening through APIs, right? So you put API plugins, but the core infrastructure is owned by big tech, right? And so that means that big tech has the leverage to give or not to share that API with a smaller player. So and that means that big tech can use that power in a number of different ways. So I think we just have to be cautious in terms of how these markets are evolving, what kind of acquisitions, investments. So, for instance, Microsoft's investment in OpenAI, Microsoft's investment in Mistral. So, the investments, the acquisitions, the other kinds of arrangements like exclusive dealing arrangements or other kind of like arrangements that are being made within this market. I think we need to kind of study them. We need to look into them. We need to learn from the mistakes that we made in the past and see how we can sort of ensure that we're at least we're already behind the curve with when it comes to like seeing how AI markets evolve, because just of how fast things have changed in the last 3 years. But we need to kind of try and stay ahead of that curve in the best possible way. And for that, we need to at least keep a track of what's going on in the markets in a more proactive way. So and that will, in my view, be the best way to kind of ensure that. I mean, there's so many areas of regulation for AI, but here I'm kind of focusing on the market-based regulation. So to ensure that we can harness the potential of AI without having to create sort of systems where we are dependent on certain powerful players, and that power can then be taken advantage of in a number of different ways.
Thank you so much, Shilpi, in fact, for bringing this competition lens to it, because this is, in fact, my core question. And the panelists can share, my understanding is that, as you correctly pointed out, that, when it comes to this APIs, right, even if you talk about an Indian landscape, right, there's a report by NASSCOM which says that there are more than 60 startups which are working on Gen AI. However, the number of foundational models is a blank, it's a zero, right? And this also sort of converges with the larger point which Mr. Prasad in the started pointed out, that US, or let us say China, are investing heavily into the systems, which would inevitably also mean that they might come up with their own foundational models, they might come up with their computational ability, right? So from a competition perspective, from a competition regulation perspective, since there is also a supply chain where there is, you first need data, then you need foundation models, then you also need computational capacity, then you also need technical expertise. I mean, an open question is that should the competition regulators be concerned across the globe? And if yes, I mean, what should be the approach taken by them? I mean, we have suggested one kind in our paper, but I mean, since the panelists are noted experts, I would like to obtain their thoughts. If we can start with Mr. Prasad, and yeah, and other speakers can follow.
Yes. Now, AI is a disruptive technology. Is going to change everything. When the competition law was first framed in the late 19th century, it was based on the wealth of nations of Adam Smith, where two traders sit down in the evening over a bottle of whiskey and cigars and discuss the prices. And that is how they do fixing. Now, presently, what is happening is the whole system has changed. You don't need to sit down and discuss. You can do it without doing anything. So it is disruptive in that way. So this price fixing, which is being done, it can be done in a tacit manner or the explicit manner. Explicit manner is when there is agreement that we will do this, that will fix the price, or will divide the territory, or you take this territory, I take that territory. That is explicit. There is a tacit understanding also. That means you take the airlines. Now all the airlines will take Indigo, take Air India, or take SpiceJet. They'll from Bombay to Delhi, they'll show the exact same price, the cost of a ticket, say 14,541. All will show the same. How is it possible? So it is because of, again, AI. All of them have a software. From one person, they bought the software from the same person. If one fellow fixes a price at 14,451, the other will automatically follow. So it is a tacit, there is no meeting together, it is a tacit understanding. Now, under the US law or the European law, tacit understanding does not lead to any price fixing. But if you take our law, there's something known as practice. So this can fall under practice. Now you would say the parties have done no wrong. Agreed, they have not met together and done no wrong. But you take a car accident. A man goes and by mistake hits someone who dies. It is a case of manslaughter. Now the competition law is basically for the consumer. To that tacit understanding, though no economist will agree with me, and most of the lawyers won't agree with me, but this will come to a case like a manslaughter. Tacit understanding. Because who's suffering? You see the end result. End result, the consumer is suffering. The US Department of Justice, they are doing the same thing, discussing all the prices, and the prices they are giving to an agency from which they could arrange. So, DL, Department of Justice, there called these airlines, and they've all paid penalties and were out of it. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
So tacit and explicit understanding is there. Now there will be entry in the market may be restricted. Now take Amazon platform. Again, it is AI driven. The Amazon platform, many people are not allowed on the platform. Now, it is having two effects. The labor market is getting affected by Amazon platform. In fact, their association, Retailer Association, 3 years ago, they told me 2 lakh small businesses have closed down because of Amazon and Flipkart. So they are already in a case before the CCI. The matter when the CCI took it up, under 26(1) of the Competition Act, they went to the Karnataka High Court, Supreme Court. Ultimately, Flipkart and Amazon they lost, and the case is pending with CCI. I don't think they passed any order on that. So there's a disruption cost in the labor market, and people are going out of business because of this. So this is a competition issue also. No, but then what is happening is on the platform, they're not allowing many persons. The restriction to entry is also there on the platform. This is also a competition issue. So these are few competition issues which are coming up. But later on, as the technology develop and AI will be applied to more and more places, more competition issues will come up. In fact, the competition law as enacted today is not in a position to tackle disruption caused by AI. Now take data. Data is something is called gold also. Data is gold. Now product and services are defined, but where is data defined in the act? Nowhere. The, the law has to be changed. The European Commission, they have changed the regulations pending with the European Parliament. But I don't know how much they'll be able to deal with it. Because this is an area which is still open. Nothing has settled down. It is all changing every day. So that's bound to happen. So let's see how disruptive it gets and how it goes on. Hello.
Absolutely, sir. So I think there's some disturbance. Sir, are you done or you have more to say, Mr. Prasad?
More or less I've done. Let others speak also.
Yeah. Miss Anupam, if you want to start. Anupam, you're on mute.
So taking a cue from what Shilpi said relating to the competition concerns, I would say that we have to understand the markets or understand the way the business models work, and know what are tipped markets, and whether they are tipped market or whether they are new emerging markets. So if we say that network effects is a barrier, or we say that huge capital investment is a barrier, then it's not like at the level of innovation it is not available to people. Funds are available to people who have ideas, funds, and network is available to the to the early entrance of the market. Just because you're an early entrant to the market doesn't mean that you're creating a barrier. So there are different perspectives how to look at it. I would say that it's very important to really know the theory of harm, to really carve a theory of harm, that how they are harming or how they are driving other people out by efficiently working, or by they are driving efficient players, or they are driving inefficient players out of the market, or the markets are changing from traditional to innovation. So if they were not sharing their innovations, then Uber would not have been able to come up with their business model. We just heard Vinod say how it's so good to have a predicted app to tell us in how much time we'll reach a particular place. And it's also a classic example of how traffic lights, when there is this number of seconds, then you're not hyper about crossing, because so there's less accidents risk because of these things. So they do bring out efficiency, they do bring out benefits. I feel that one has to know where is the barrier being created over here. And since foundational models are large language models, and they are just they're general data, a huge amount of data, like GPT-4, DALI, etc. And now, is there a rhetoric that there's a barrier because earlier we used to hear that data is the new oil, but then we got to know how just plain vanilla data is of no use. It's got to be specific to your business, so you've got to it's got to be fungible, and you've got to make it sophisticated enough for your own business. So there are a lot of advantages that that are there to use these technologies. One has to, instead of fearing, one has to really understand that how the world is adapting to new changes, how it's bringing in efficiency. Coming to jobs, now you'll soon have Gen AI developed apps or robots who will interview you, and the whole 30 months process can be reduced to a few minutes, right? So in farming, in so many other places, in healthcare, like we heard, there is so much of research that is there, which that data can be used, and it can be immediately brought to use. And of course, like I said, there will always be harms, but how do we reduce it? So the risk and reward kind of balancing act is something that we require to do. And of course, nobody's saying that there are no harms. Even Stanford has come up with a paper which talks about the opportunities and the risks of these foundation models as recent as in 2021. So I think this is a time to dig deeper into the research, and to really understand how this is going to pan out, and what do these markets mean, what do these foundational models mean, and how they need to be further trained to, and therefore not to feel that there's a risk, and put them in a certain bracket. In fact, if we start doing that, then we won't get the advantages. Like it's being said that tying and bundling will be a problem, but then if you don't allow bundling, how are so many gig workers going to be able to get jobs with the Swiggies and Zomatos, and so many small kitchens, so many hotels? How are they going to get business? So is it adding value to business? And if it is, then where are the harms? Where is it? So is it in the pricing? Are we seeing exploitation by the dominant players, by the early players? So if 30% is too high a price, then can we understand, how the pricing is exploitative? Because that requires a cost analysis, cost and benefit analysis. So otherwise, businesses are always going to have their own, independence of dealing with platforms, and they can always decide on what basis. But suppose this is turning out to be a one-sided market, then can we develop theories on frank issues like fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory access? So where do we need to develop the theories, and where do we need to research? Where is it that we need to focus on, instead of just blanket rules and just typecasting and fearing AI?
Thank you so much, Anupam. Mr. Vutu, if you can share your thoughts.
I'm just reminded of a couple of instances. I just share those. Way back, we used to have something called the ISD and STD booths, and those were existing. And the government used to give it to uneducated, war widows, army, ex-servicemen, handicapped, and so on and so forth. And there were also people that used to pay lakhs of rupees to get an STD booth near a station or inside a station. And then came the paging industry, so pagers. I was part of one company at that point in time, which was actually a collaboration between various, and we started paging services. And when the paging services came, the STD booth operators and everybody was very happy. Why? Because you get a page, you get paged, so you got to rush to a STD booth and or an PCO and call up somebody, reply the call or whatever. But then when um, we got the first mobile phones, all of these guys, there were millions and millions of STD, ICD, PCO booths who protested. He said, how the hell can you allow somebody to carry a mobile phone and what will we do with all these millions of PCOs? But nevertheless, there were lots of discussions, there were a lot of protests, a lot of people were on the roads saying that we've spent so much money, we've given deposits, we've we have paid 50,000 rupees for getting as deposit for getting these PCO booths and all that. You can't just kill our this blah blah. But you see, innovation can't be stifled. What happened? We not only went on to 2G phones, we went on to 3G, we went on to 4G, we went on to 5G. But a lot of the people that were involved did have the option of switching on over and becoming operators, distributors, dealers for these very services. A lot of them refused to. And those ones are still trying to sell bread, milk, and God knows what else from the same booths. They still have those telephones still there. But the fact is, a lot of them changed. A lot of them changed to becoming mobile phone operators. A lot of them changed to becoming technicians. A lot of them changed to, reselling mobile phones and so on and so forth. Now, so at this point in time where we're talking about a flux, we are talking about what sort of a governance framework should AI have. It's a I'd say a complex issue. It's not an easy issue. It will need a balanced approach where you are going to have to consider the potential benefits and also the risks. On one hand, while we are talking about we should have a hands-on approach, it will allow the AI industry to self-regulate, innovate without significant government intervention. This approach also will definitely foster rapid innovation, prevent stifling the growth of AI, because you'll have minimum regulatory burdens. And there's some people who say there are also significant risks because there's unchecked biases, privacy violations, and concentration of power in the hands of a few dominant players, and so on and so forth. Prasad sir also was talking about a couple of such occasions. But I know for sure that during COVID, we've got more than 22,000 people on various marketplaces who have survived COVID, continued doing business only because these platforms were active. Where they're not active, they would have, especially women. The amount of pressure women had in shutting down businesses during COVID was immense. But the fact that a lot of them transformed their businesses by going online, going onto marketplaces, people did a lot of work or hard work in understanding how, what to do, what to learn. Even people that had never seen a computer or used a computer before that. So while we are talking about, there should be government control or tight control over how do you deploy, how do you develop AI systems. There should be strict regulations so that, and there should be also oversight mechanisms. We are talking about ultimately, as a country, are we going to create bureaucratic hurdles for everyone who is into developing AI? And that, that will potentially push us into a situation where we'll fall behind in the global AI race completely. Is that what we want to do? AI has been, I've just demonstrated AI has been around from 2000. What has the US done to, bring it under control or stop it or do whatever? In fact, it's the other way around. I can talk about 20 other things that are happening in AI today, which most of us don't even know what it can do. I always feel there needs to be a more balanced approach, which I normally call the collaboratory, regulations, but in the form of collaboration with the people that you are trying to regulate. So a framework where the government collaborates with industry stakeholders, academia, civil society organizations, users, and consumer groups to develop guidelines, standards, ethical frameworks, wherein you are leveraging the expertise and the agility of the private sector while ensuring that appropriate safeguards and governance mechanisms are also put into place. There is a certain amount of transparency so that you are able to mitigate risks and obviously protect the public interest. That's why governments are there. I mean, I look forward to lawyers talking about this more, because just day before yesterday we were talking about the fact about the draft digital bill, and like Anupam talked about, the sort of things that they brought in, bundling. I mean, it's sometimes idiotic to understand that today when you buy a Google Cloud account, an email account, you get 15 different things with it. You also get a Google meat account. I mean, so many things. Now, if they were to unbundle this entire thing and sell it to me individually, no MSME on earth will buy it. It'll become more
Absolutely.
expensive than everybody else.
Absolutely.
What are we basically trying to push when we are saying unbundle? So there are a lot of those things that need to be done with in a collaborative mechanism, not by just forcing our way down somebody else's throat, or the other way around.
Yeah, I totally, subscribe to the same view. And in fact, people like should really put in your comments. And I'm sure you are doing that, but you can give detailed comments on, the bill that is proposed, because not only will it help the regulatory thinking into, how collaborative thinking can work. They It will help them to really come up with some principles for design, principles for conduct. So set rules for what is good and what is bad, rather than without understanding the domain, trying to restructure the businesses without understanding what the business is. Now, in fact, if the consensus really has to be built between all the stakeholders, what is important is that there is an expert who's a neutral person between the various stakeholders, who can really understand the different point of views. So there are professional people who can help in, mediators are professionals who can help in this kind of consensus building, I would say. And I was just to say that I was also part of that regulatory evolution in 98, 99, when the pagers had come. I was working with a law firm, and the Cellular Operators Association of India. We had approached courts, to set up, to ask for a judicial body, which will look at the appeals from Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. And that's when this whole thing about how pagers were used, and then mobiles, and then soon pagers went out of business. So should we go back in time, or should we think forward? And the regulators need to understand, or the policymakers need to understand, of the how to think of the counterfactual. See, if on the first day Google was interoperable with other email accounts, or Facebook was interoperable with other social media
Social.
platforms, would we have enough people to, people would be confused which were where to, it only adds value when there are enough users over there. And only then people get onto the same platform. And this has always been there, even with telecom. If there are not enough users, then people will not subscribe to it. So this whole type of business model is something that regulators will never be able to catch up with. So that's why they've never been able to catch up with how the businesses are growing, how innovation is. So it's better to have collaboration, better to have incentives in the regulatory thinking, and have more evidence based thinking, so that everybody knows where is it the harms are. And those incentives will give them the real approach as to where is it that they need to comply. And they will be more inclined for governance. If you provide a platform for governance, and you provide a platform for collaboration, they will actually explain to you. And you can always ask questions, and have a more workable governance framework.
So Anupam, Vinod has a hard stop at 7. Vinod, if you can just give your concluding thoughts before you log out. I know Shilpi, Dr. Bhattacharya has to give her thoughts on competition, but since there is a hard stop.
I just wanted to say this, that the fact that all of you are addressing the issue today, it is a big issue. It's not something that needs to be swept under the carpet, and not see the elephant in the room. The fact is that what we are talking about is, as an economy, we have huge potential. The government understands the potential. It's just that all of us, when we can work together with all the stakeholders, I don't think there'll be any problems in transitioning to a much larger economy, much larger role for India that I can see in the future. It's just that we need to be clear about what sort of, also not at the same time copying, and pasting, I'd say, regulations from elsewhere, because as a country we have, I mean, this entire government has been for the last 10 years looking at everything that we've sort of borrowed from everywhere and regrouping it, changing it right from point one. And that is the approach that is going to take us through. And I'm very sure, hopefully, the same government comes back. I think they'll continue to, wipe this slate clean, rethink on a lot of things, and ultimately look at how Indians, in particular, can progress more than anything else. With that, what Anupam said about, well, I've been pushing the MCA, the government, in every possible manner. In fact, today in the morning, today Financial Express did talk about the fact that about the draft bill that has come out, the digital bill. Uh, uh, we've had articles constantly in the newspapers. We've been engaging with the government, and we will not let go. That's very clear. You see, this is a country that we all love. We are working towards making this, forget just a 5 trillion economy. I think we are going much beyond that. We are looking at providing employment to the millions and millions of people that are coming out of colleges every year. And if we are looking at all of that, and for doing all that, all of us need to have a similar balanced approach. And I don't think that day is different, when we would be able to pride ourselves for the decisions that we have taken in the recent past. Thank you very much for having me. I'm sorry I have to leave, but I have to join another meeting. But I'll make it up to you guys when I'm here next. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vinod. So I come to Shilpi. Shilpi, if you want, it would be great if you can share your thoughts on how competition landscape is panning out. What are the initiatives taken across the globe, and what possibly should be the approach of the Indian Competition Authority?
Okay, so just I guess we also have maybe a time limit here, so I'll try to be brief as
Yeah.
brief.
So we are already 10 minutes over the board, but yeah. So post this, we'll have concluding thoughts. Yeah.
Um, so so in when it comes to competition law, we have two concepts with respect to sort of how a competition pans out. One is competition for the market, the other is competition in the market. And we know that with digital markets, the primary form of competition is competition for the market, which means that sort of you're not like competing to carve out a space in a market, but you're essentially competing to become the standard, or the player that kind of sets the standard in the market. So there isn't that much of room for like having a lot of players in the market. And I think AI-driven markets are at least sort of the foundational models, the large language models. These are markets where there is competition for the market. So when there is competition for the market, there's already the nature of competition is already different. And we've seen that with digital markets. And therefore, the way in which we approach the regulation of these markets needs to kind of take that into account. So sort of the eminent speakers before me spoke about sort of how sort of innovation has happened previously, for instance, with mobile phones coming and replacing STD booths. But with all those instances of innovation, we saw disruption happening, existing players leaving the market, new players coming into the market. And that's sort of the way that the cycle of creative destruction should work. Sort of, Schumpeter does talk about sort of you needing monopoly power to kind of invest in innovation, but he also talks about sort of that monopoly power being disrupted. But we see here that that's not happening. You have the same players sort of moving from monopoly in one market to monopoly in the next market. So there was an opportunity here with this kind of transformative technology for there to be disruption in terms of new players coming in. But that hasn't happened. So the way that we view this cannot be the same as the way that we're viewing all previous. Like you can't view everything in the same way. That's exactly how competition law works, right? You take a case by case approach. So you look at the features of this market, you look at the players in this market, you study the market individually, and you see what's happening, and then you see that basically all the players who already have extremely powerful positions in other markets are going to have even more powerful position through AI. So how is AI going to make the market more competitive if it's essentially the same players are occupying powerful positions? It's not, and competition, I'm sure we'll all agree, is an important driver of innovation. So you need to have more players in the market for there to be more innovation. And we already know that big tech has a lot of incentive, like because in economics we do like think about things through incentives. So when you have monopoly power, you have a lot of incentive to work towards maintaining that power rather than work towards disrupting that power. So you will invest in technology that will make sure that your power is maintained, but you will not want a complete transformation. So obviously big tech will invest in AI because they want to be in the game, but they will not come up with some like they will just do what they need to do to maintain their power. But if
Therefore,
a completely different company that comes in, then you can have something entirely different and entirely transformative, right? So of course OpenAI started with that, but now sort of how is it going to go? Because now it's in the hands of Microsoft. So how is it going to go now is what we need to see, and that's a matter of concern. So the previous speakers have talked about the digital competition bill, but I think the fundamental principles of contestability, fairness, and transparency need to apply, because I think that those are like fundamental principles that kind of I think will guide competition enforcement going forward, given that they have such a primary sort of space now in the digital competition bill. And if those are like the fundamental principles that guide competition enforcement, I think they are very pivotal principles that we need to keep in mind when we look at AI regulation. So for instance, transparency. Let's look at transparency. It's a very interesting principle. OpenAI has not shared what kind of data they use to train their model, right? We don't exactly know what is happening behind the scenes. AI remains a very, very hard kept secret black box, right? So we know that that the data on which AI models are trained is data that belongs to everyone. There's a lot of incentive to create that data that goes away through these kind of models. So there are like a lot of more nuances to this, right? So there needs to be more transparency, right? We need to understand what exactly is going on, how these models are developed, what kind of data is used to develop them, what are the potential applications for them, right? And then there needs to be fairness and contestability. So fairness in the sense of sort of having having a reasonable understanding of what you're going to do with this data, with the foundational models that you have. How can other players interact with it? So for instance, just taking one example, the Google Play case, which is kind of the anti-steering provisions, which are kind of now part of the digital competition bill. The point was that some app developers are being charged 15 to 30% commission. Other app developers who are getting the same services from Google and being charged nothing. And Google gets to decide this, right? There are players like Amazon making so much of money through Google Play, doesn't get charged anything by Google, right? So when you have that kind of power, right? And that's what CCI was not happy with, right? They said you have to be transparent, you have to be fair and reasonable in how you interact. When you have that kind of power that everyone has to use your technology, they have to be on your app store, then you have to use that power in a reasonable way, right? You have to be transparent about how you're using that power. So essentially, I think even with AIs, we have to kind of be mindful that since everyone is kind of going to be dependent on these foundational models, how are the people who have control over that foundational model, or the corporations that have control over that foundational model, going to be using it, right? Because the danger is that, as we saw with the Google Pay/Google Play case, that sort of when you have that kind of power, the discretion is in your hand. and no one can really stop. And we see what Google is doing with this kind of power, which is that even though CCI has issued remedies, their compliance with those remedies are so. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to end now. The compliance is so. I mean, they essentially don't care about compliance. Right? Their compliance is making matters worse. So that's the problem with having entities that have that kind of power. They can fight CCI tooth and nail every step of the way. They have much smarter lawyers with a lot of money, and they can engage in endless litigation. And even though, say, there are sort of there's orders against them, they are not complying. And now this is the second set of cases. So, I mean, we don't want that to happen with AI, right? We want there to be an open and fair and transparent market where everyone benefits from the technology. So for that, we need to have clear competition rules in place.
Thank you so much, Shilpi.
Just 1 second on this same thing. I agree with Shilpi with all these concerns. My concern is that be clear about and be define what is contestability and fairness. When you have abstract rules, when you have abstract definitions, that's where it becomes a chicken and egg. That you feel that there is no compliance, but then you've yourself not been clear, and then that's why you have to add a provision like the anti-circumvention provision. So it all depends on understanding the market. Only then one can say whether there is a lack of contestability. I'm not saying that the dominant players do not want to keep their power. Of course, that's why they've invested in it. They are so heavily invested in it. But then, how are they abusing the power? If the regulators, if the policymakers are clear about it, that's when the remedies will help.
Thank you so much, Anupam. Since I think we are already 13 minutes over the board, if Prasad sir can sort of give his concluding thoughts, given by very brief note by Dr. Bhattacharya.
I'll be very brief. Thing is, an idea has come, nobody can stop this idea. The AI is an idea, is a modern idea. It can't stop you whatever regulation you bring. If you bring a regulation, what will happen in your country? AI will lag behind, and in the long run, you will lose it because your products will be costlier, your services will be costlier, you can't compete in the market. No, what is required is many things to be seen just now is what this big tech is doing. Many small companies coming up with ideas. Now you take this OpenAI. Microsoft has more or less taken it over. It has been cleared also by other agencies. But they are taking over companies all over the world. The human brain which have developed these ideas, they have been taken over by big tech. The big tech are going to become bigger and bigger. And they're going to abuse their dominance. What is required now in CCI is you require manpower who knows some technology, who knows some algorithm, because algorithm is an area which is used in the share market. Rigging is there happening every day. The algorithm is doing in the airfare is happening every day. So what is required in CCI is people who have the technical know-how. But an idea has come and go on. Ultimately, you'll find at one day the CEO of a company will be a computer. It will not a man, it will be a computer. Now, how will you deal with that thing called computer? How will you tax it or penalize it under competition law? These issues are going to come slowly and slowly. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, just because we are short on time, if briefly Anupam can also share her concluding thoughts, followed by Dr. Bhattacharya.
So I think I already said quite a bit. I would just reiterate the importance of market studies and the importance of carving theories of harm, and it will help in settlements and commitments. It will help. It will have a balanced view. It can enhance innovation. It will not kill innovation, or there will be no false positive errors. Of course, we cannot have light regulations also. So while overdosing is not good, even underdosing is not good. So there needs to be a balance, and I think a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder collaboration is the way forward. so that every stakeholder, whether it's the government, the consumers, the business users, every stakeholder has a perspective and their say of how they would like to use it, rather than just the government prescribing rules for it. And I think that's how it's going to help in the times to come.
Thank you so much. Shilpi, final and concluding thoughts. I know we all feel very deeply about this subject, but yeah, unfortunately, time is less.
Yeah, so just maybe two thoughts. One, that I think we need, uh, from a computational perspective, more technical understanding of sort of what's happening with AI. So definitely CCI needs to have proper technology experts, engineers working with them to understand. And the second is just having a clearer understanding of what are the goals that we want to achieve through this kind of regulation, what kind of markets we want to see, what are the potentials and the pitfalls, like having a clear understanding of goals and then sort of enforcing based on that would be great.
Shilpi, are you done? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, LP. I think we are at the end of the discussion. I would like to pay my thanks to to Mr. Prasad, to Ms. Sangi, to Mr. Vutu and Dr. Bhattacharya for accepting the invitation and taking time out of the busy schedule on speaking on this key area of law and technology, which is in the emerging stage. And I think based on what panelists have spoken in this discussion, I think AI as a market is something which is inherent, which has a deep potential. But I think all the panelists have also pointed out that there are regulatory concerns, right? For instance, Mr. Vutu pointed out labor market might be an issue. Dr. Bhattacharya talked about competition aspects. Ms. Sangi talked about theory of harm, and Mr. Prasad stated a lot on the geopolitical aspect on how intense regulation might be a barrier for the national growth itself. So I think there are no easy answers, but I hope that this discussion was helpful to the participants and would also assist us in taking assist us and the competition authority in taking this issue forward on what are the potentials and risks involved. With this, I mean, I would like to again thank again the participants for accepting the invitation and speaking on this area. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you.
Thank you. It was
Have a nice
great.
evening.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Bye.
Nice to see you, sir. See you in person soon. If
Where?
you're not in Singapore, it will be nice to see you
I'm
in
in
person.
Mumbai now.
Okay. Nice to know that.
Okay, chalo, see you for a long time.